Okay, this is something that I was thinking in my head earlier today, and I busted the people thinking on my heads, because this is how I communicate to my company in heaven or through God, because God's got permission to read your thoughts, right? So he's the afterlife, like I said, doesn't have permission to read your thoughts. So this is something that I thought of my thoughts to stir up my company, and I caught him stealing it. So I was going to try to see if I could say it out loud, what I thought in my head, if I could say it out loud. And I did, and I successfully said it out loud and told the dirty cops, or whatever your mafia is, or whatever it is, um, this. And now I'm going to try to tell you this, and this is all on the same day, so within hours. So, the truth disposition thing. Okay, so basically, my entity, the Blaine, the people that are supposed to represent Blaine in heaven, Blaine's company, Blaine's entity, more so as entity than as company, but like the personally Blaine stuff. We founded our foundation on truth. Truth was my Pinocchio virtue. It's like the only virtue I know until I go look up into Google what the other virtues are. Truth is like the only virtue I know. So one of the things that I notice is the guys that are doing my entity are way better at telling the truth than I am. They can tell way better truth than I can tell, I'm like a 99% truth teller, but still, I don't tell the truth as well as other people tell the truth either. There's the more you tell the truth, the better you get at telling the truth and stuff like that. So anyway, one of the things that I was going to come to them with, since we built my entity foundation on this one virtue at the foundation of our entity, um, was I was going to come up to them and call them the liars, that they're lying about this, that, and the other thing, and give them this like load of crap. You know how liars will call truth tellers liars. Exactly, like liars will come and tell a truth teller like me I'm lying, which in some cases there might be a context for you to understand, which might be a technical misunderstanding, but whatever. 99%, especially if I'm talking about anything serious, it's about I'm telling the truth. So what I was going to do is I was going to gather and sociologically collect all these liars, what liars say to truth tellers, and their unfounded statements about that them being the liars, and their unfounded statements about truthful people being liars and stuff. So I was going to collect all these, and I was going to harass my entity. I was going to harass my entity with this till I drove him crazy. And this is what they're going to do. They're going to take these statements and let it drive them crazy, and then they're going to disposition themselves to protect themselves from these statements. So like the second virtue that we want is like if you know my 0 to 1 math, we're what's the next most you try to think what's the most important thing that you can do here, and then after you have one thing, what's the most important thing again. The second thing is what's the most important. The third thing is what's the most important thing. The 10 millionth thing is what's the most important thing to do here. So when you're doing 0 to 1 math and you're doing virtue number 1, truth, what's virtue number 2 in this entity? And we don't know yet. But what we're going to do is disposition our truth tellers with this unfounded statements of their lyinghood, of them being liars. And what they're going to do is they're going to disposition themselves and protect themselves from these sort of statements. And this isn't going to be our second virtue, though. This is like a violent version of your second virtue, because you're attacked and that's what you came up with. It was a second virtue to protect yourself. So it's like a violent version. So what he's going to do is tell us what our second virtue should be. What it should be instead of this violently attacked reaction virtue that we're coming up with to protect ourselves. We're going to put our second, this is what we think should be the most important thing to us, to our non-military, non-militant selves, what our second virtue should be. Instead of a protective virtue, this is what our second virtue should be. So this gives us insight onto what our second virtue should be. Like, we've dispositioned ourselves with this attack, and we've created this, not only the second virtue that we're not going to use, but insight onto what second virtue we are going to use. So that's what we want to do. We want to disposition ourselves in a number of different ways for a number of different reasons. And these aren't going to be the virtues that we use. We're not going to disposition ourselves necessarily into the virtues that we want to use. We're going to get insight onto the virtue, onto the second virtue that we want to use. So that's one of the things I did to spark my company. Sort of how my system is built, is that I go into the system and I spark these things up, and I see, look, we could sociologically uncover a whole bunch of information about what we want to do and how we want to be by going through these sort of dispositional exercises and seeing what our opinion is now. Like, we got a totally different angle on things. We got a totally different outlook on what our second virtue should be through our dispositioning. You know, I'm angry, I think it should be that. Or I'm overjoyed, I think this is too much joy, I think it should be something more calm. You know what I mean? There's all types of different reactionary opinions on what your second virtue should be. So what I wanted to have, another thing, is a generative thought. This is back to generative thought. So this is a generative thought for all the details on the street. So you take the asphalt and the color of the asphalt and the terrain and the evenness of the terrain, or any potholes, a lamp post on the side of the street, the sidewalks, the grindings on the side, all things that relate to a street. As far as the decoration or the outline, the outlining decoration of a lamppost even, or I forget what they call that, but anyway, we want to create a generative thought for everything. We want to create a generative thought, not just about a street and how beautiful the street is in one generative thought. We want to create a generative thought about all the details. So the lamppost, this part of the lamppost, that part of the lamppost, this part of the lamppost, a generative thought for each piece of that lamppost that is on the street, and a generative thought for everything on the street, from the asphalt to the sidewalk to the potholes. You know what I mean? We want a generative thought for everything. And this is a way to use a collection and generative thoughts. So you put a collection of these generative thoughts together. So what did I do with this collection of generative thoughts idea? Build Cadillacs. We put together one of the things that I do when I do my set. I draw karma pictures on YouTube, and I'll tell you more about that. But one of the things that I do when I listen to Rich Boy throw some D's on it, that's where he's like, I just bought a Cadillac, is I buy a Cadillac or a company, except like I'm a big deal. I don't just buy little Cadillacs, I buy the whole company, right? So when I buy the whole company from my school, what I give the owner is a custom Cadillac, or a custom hovermobile, or a custom tiny spaceship, or whatever transportation they're using in that region that I just bought a company from my school. And I create a custom concept car. And these concept cars have been like, from all the gods and all the angels and all the dimensions and all the spaceships, have come up with concepts based on all the things that I've discovered karmatically throughout my set and stuff like that. So I've, like, some of the not some of the big ones, but some of the ones that are like a bit more recently, when I started running out of ideas, are like the Blues Brothers. I've got a Mission from God mobile, so I've got a custom one that I gave away to a company that I bought. I've got a Creator of Life signature mobile. I've got the Construct. You know what the Construct is? He's a soul that can compose himself of anything. He's a soul that can lift rocks. Like, your soul can't even lift your body without a machine, if you didn't know that. Your soul can't even lift this pitiful flesh without a machine. His soul can lift the rocks around you, like literally lift them up, and compose his body of whatever he wants, or whatever he can lift already. That's the thing, you gotta lift more and more things the more you become a Construct. So I got a Construct Flock tank, or Glock tank defense. He's got some really cool sounds to this Construct, and that's why I call it a Glock. But a mobile boss mobile, being the boss, being God, being an angel. I got like everything, being Z. I've got all these industrial palettes. I came up with those, from all across the world, those natural palettes, natural colors, natural rocks, natural materials, natural everything. I created an industrial palette out of different environments. I got a mobile based off that. I got a bunch of different mobiles based off that, actually. So what we did is we put together this generative thought mobile, and we gave that away as part of these karma pictures that I was drawing on YouTube. That's what my set is. I draw karma pictures on YouTube. If you watch the same videos as the spies that watch the same videos of the spies that watch me, I draw karma pictures for them on their monitors in their real life. Like, do stuff like, I don't know if I'll show you anything there, but there's a little bit of, right there, there's a little bit of karma that went by there. But anyway, I connect to real machines and real gods and like real heavens and real karma machines that have been here for trillions of years, and I draw these pictures, right? I'll even show the spies and stuff, an odd picture or two that I'm drawing. So that's where I do my set, and I buy these Cadillacs. And you know, the other thing is you can build anything generative. You can do custom anything, a generative thought. You don't just have to do a Cadillac. You can do anything, custom anything generative thought.